Hello students, there is me, Aman Sharma, and I'm back with a new chapter of History Class 8, The Making of the National Movement 1870 to 1947. So till 1859 we discussed about the Blue Rebellion. Then after many things happened. In between the period of 1860 to 1870 and the in the same period of time the people were revolting, they were suppressed by the Britishers, and not a single big organization was there who can put demand in front of Britishers regarding the independence of India. So let's see how this movement, the background of movement started. In the previous some chapters we discussed a lot of things like the Britishers, how they conquest the territories of India, they took over all the kingdoms, how they introduced new land reforms, new laws, administrative institution. Then in the chapter the ruling the countryside we discussed about some revenue policies that Britishers came up with, and revolt also we discussed 1857 revolt, and also how the craft industry as well as the iron industry decline in India. Its craft and iron steel industry decline in India. Now, after all these things, after almost 150 years the of the colonized rule of Britishers, some nationalism, the feeling of nationalism started expanding, emerging in the people of India. So they started asking about the country, that what is this country of India and for whom it is meant. Means to whom this country belong to, and to whom the resources of this country belong to. So the simple answer was like India is the country of the Indians. The India is the country of Indians, and it is for every person, irrespective of caste, color, creed, language, or gender. And all the resources that are present in India are for the Indians, not for the Britishers. Feeling of nationalism was emerging into the people. Many political associations also formed to put forward the demand for the rights of the common people. One was like Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, which came in 1870, which was formed in Pune. Then Indian Association, which was formed in 1852 at Bengal. Then Madras Mahajan Sabha, that is 1884 at Madras. The Bombay Presidency Association, which was formed in 1885 in Bombay. So you can see that many organizations formed in different parts of India. And basically the members of these associations were basically recruited from the particular area like Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. So maximum of the members were belong to Pune. Similarly, Bengal, Madras, and Bombay. But there was a lack of an all India institution. 1876 to 1880, Britishers took some steps which steps can be regarded as they were taken to suppress the common people, their demand, and their revolt. Among many steps, some steps are mentioned here. The first one was Vernacular Press Act. This act came in 1878, and this act was actually enacted to silence those newspapers which are actually which were actually critical to the government. They write something opposite to the British government, so to restrict the authority of those newspapers, Britishers came up with this Vernacular Press Act. The second act was the Arms Act. This act also passed in 1878, and this act disallow Indians from possessing arms. They cannot have arms with them. Indians cannot have arms with them. The third was the controversy of Ilbert Bill. So the bill actually provided for the trial of British or European persons by Indians. Now, the Britishers started opposing this Ilbert Bill, and this enraged the common Indians. Like, the Britishers were not actually have a kind of attitude which shows that Indians are important to them or equal to them. So there was a need of an all India organization who can put demand in front of Britishers regarding the common people. Here comes the Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress was established in 1885. Some 72 delegates from all over the country met in Bombay in December 1885 with the help of a retired Indian civil service servant, A.O. Hume. Some of the important members of this Indian National Congress were Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tebji, W.C. Banerjee, Satyendranath Banerjee, Ramesh Chandra Dutt, S. Subramanya Iyer. The first time the first session of Indian National Congress was preceded by W.C. Banerjee. Now, one very important personality was there of Dadabhai Naoroji, who was actually a businessman, and he was settled in London. And for some period of time, he was also the member of British Parliament. He was a publicist, means he actually publishes his idea, he circulates his idea information, he writes report, speaking at meetings also. So the Dadabhai Naoroji was actually a publicist, and he also guided the younger nationalists. His a very famous book was Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, in which he totally criticized the economic steps taken by Britishers. A nation in the making. So what Congress actually did in its first 20 years. So here are some of the demands which Britishers put forward. Were first the Indianization of administration. So let's see what was Indianization of administration and what kind of demands the Congress party put forward. First, Indians in the government and in administration. So their demand was to increase the number of Indians in the government and in the administration. Legislative council to be made more representative and given more power. So the legislative council, in which many Indians were there who were elected by common Indian people, were not having too much power or were having sufficient power. So they demanded sufficient power and more number of people in legislative council. Introduced in provinces where none existed. They also demanded from Britishers that there should be more number of province where legislative council should be made. Indians be placed in high position in the government. As the Indians were not given high position, so they demanded that civil service examinations should be held in India and the Indians should have the high position ranks also. They wanted the separation of judiciary from executive. Now in India, all three organs of government, legislature, executive and judiciary, all three are independent to each other. But at that time, judiciary and executive both were combined. So the Congress wanted in his first year to separate judiciary and executive from each other. Now continuous drain of wealth was happening in India as the British officer sent large amount of their salary, as their salaries were also large. They sent large part of their salaries to Britain. In this way, the drain of wealth was happening. That's why the Congress demanded Indianization of the ad. Now there were many economic issues which were raised by the Congress. The first economic issue was that British rule the Congress said that British rule led to poverty and famine. Famine. Famine means shortage of food basically. When the shortage of food is there in large part of a country, then it is known as famine. As land revenue were increased and export of grain to Europe also increased, and these steps of Britishers increased the food shortage in India. Now some demands like reduction of revenue, cut in military expenditure, a large amount of sum was also actually spent on military. So Congress demanded to cut those military expenditure and they needed more funds for irrigation. Congress passed many resolution. Resolution means simply they put demand in written form in front of Britishers to abolish the salt tax, treatment of Indian laborers abroad, as many Indian were hired outside India for plantation and the treatment with them of Britishers were very bad, so they needed good treatment with Indian laborers. Then suffering of forest dwellers, as many forest laws were implemented by the Britishers. Those laws restricted the forest dwellers, forest inhabitants to enter those areas. So Congress also put demand for those forest dwellers. And these demands shows that Congress, yes, the members, the representative of the Congress were actually belong to educated elite class, but they did not only talk on the behalf of the professional people, zamindars and industrialists, but yes, they also put demand of common laborers, forest dwellers and common people also. Now some steps that were taken by the Congress, how they used to basically the Congress, sometime after we will discuss that Congress was divided into two groups, moderates and radical. So generally the steps that were taken by moderate means no, those leaders of Congress who supported non-violence, they actually put demand in front of Britishers in the Legislative Council. So those were the moderates, and what steps and which type of steps they usually take, they publish newspaper, they write articles to show Britishers that what they want. They in their articles and in their newspaper, they used to criticize the rule of Britishers, and they also show in their articles that how the steps of the Britishers are actually ruining the economic strength of the country. They criticized the Britishers in their speeches also. They also sent representatives to different parts of the country. Means I'm talking about the moderates, the common, the representative who were in the Congress. They actually sent some representative to different parts of the country to mobilize the common people to show to, or to, you can say, develop the idea of nationalism in the common people. They felt that the British had respect for the ideals of freedom and justice, as they were already a democratic country. So they have some ideals, they have some kind of feeling for the freedom and justice of a common people. So they would accept the just demand of Indians, means whatever the demands we are putting. So Britishers definitely accept these demands. This was the thinking of the. Now here you can see some radical Congress. First of all, you should know the meaning of radical. Radical means those who believe in constructive work. Those, you cannot say that directly they believe in violence, they support violence, but yes, they need constructive work, they need a sudden change, means they believe in revolution. Some important leaders of this radicals were Lala Rajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal. These were actually the important radical leaders. Lala Lajpat Rai belonged to Punjab, Bal Gangadhar Tilak belonged to Maharashtra, Bipin Chandra Pal belonged to Bengal. So, if we talk about Bal Gangadhar Tilak, he was a very eminent personality from Maharashtra, and he also started a newspaper, Marathi newspaper, which was known as Kesari. He was the editor of that Kesari newspaper, and in his newspaper he strongly criticized the British rule. Here the second was Bipin Chandra Pal. He was the critical of politics of petition. Actually, the moderates, the second branch of Congress was the moderate, and they believe in politics of petition, means request, and he did not believe in he was a critical, means he opposes the politics of petition. He was also an active member of RS. Then, and the three of these people were commonly known as Lal Bal Pal. And in till 1890, many Indians began to raise question about the political style of Congress, means the political style of basically moderates, means they are only doing politics of prayer. They always used to criticize the steps taken by the moderates, as they only put demand in front of Britishers. They never emphasize on anything, so they do politics of prayer. But the radicals actually emphasized the importance of self-reliance and constructive work, means we should depend on ourselves, and they always used to ask for Swaraj, that this freedom is my birthright and I shall have it. This was the slogan given by Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and he was a supporter of Swaraj. Thank you. We will again meet in the second part. Till then, take care.